for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson, and I'm your co-host.
And I'm Katy Steele Baroni for Jack Prince.
Well, how are you today?
Oh, you know.
It's nice to be in person. We had to do the show last week over the phone. I'm glad that things worked out the way that they did.
Yeah, it is definitely nice to see your face. And yeah, we didn't have any issues last week, but we wanted to make sure we were being safe. So
it's nice to see you in your pajamas.
Hey, you didn't have to tell everybody. I'm a little slow today, okay, friends?
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Well, I'm sure we've got listeners that are listening in their pajamas too. So
if so, you are on my level.
Yeah. Actually, if you want, this just popped in my head. If you want to send pictures of you listening to the show in your pajamas, just so long as there's no nudity, you can go ahead and send those to us.
We would show you what I look like, but this is scary.
You can just send them to Facebook Messenger through the Southpaws Facebook page. And speaking of which, you can follow us all over social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. We're on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. We're on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. We're on YouTube. Just do a search for Southpaws Radio there. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime you like at Spreaker.com. Do a search for Southpaws there. We're back on Stitcher. You can find us at Stitcher.com. Do a search for Southpaws there as well. You can also find us at Apple Podcasts by doing a search for Southpaws. And once you found our logo, you found us. Links to our podcast are automatically sent to Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 p.m., and you can hear us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI-FM in Taos, New Mexico, and KZGM in Kabul, Missouri. Oh, boy. Well, we've got an update from last week. We had mentioned the death of former U.S. Ambassador to Italy, Pete Secchia, who was a bigwig in the Republican Party here. Well, we had mentioned that he had had health issues, and then he ended up contracting the coronavirus. Well, we had an update after we finished recording last week. This is from Wood Television. Joan Secchia, the wife of Peter Secchia, has been hospitalized with COVID-19. A family spokesperson confirmed her hospitalization to News 8 last week, Friday, which would have been October 23rd. They say that her symptoms are not severe. She is improving, expected to be released within the next few days. Well, they just keep downplaying this. There are long-term effects to this disease, some of which we don't even quite fully understand yet.
Yeah. It's not the flu. I know we've said that a million times, but it's really not the flu. Everybody I've talked to that's experienced it says you do not want to get this.
Exactly. I've heard of people who are long-term carriers of this. What do they call them? Heavy carriers?
Oh, yeah, I can't remember what that term is.
I think they're heavy load carriers, I think is what they're called.
Oh, yeah, that sounds right.
You know, people are scared of this. They should be.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know the numbers are going up now in ways we haven't seen yet because we weren't testing like this before, right?
Yeah.
And that's not to say that it's not as bad as it sounds. It is bad. And that means that it's going to continue to progressively get worse faster and faster. I know personally I don't feel like we're at the rate we were in the spring yet because I live so close to the major hospitals that I'm going to know the day it happens. I'll hear the sirens again. I'll never forget that. The couple of weeks in April that all I heard day and night were ambulances.
Wow.
When I left the house, all I saw were people getting picked up at bus stops. You know, it was horrible. And we are weeks away from that, you guys. Like, be careful.
Yeah, we checked the Spectrum Health dashboard before we went on the air this morning or today. We're actually recording Friday, October 30th, 2020. This is the day before Halloween. We checked the Spectrum Health dashboard here in town locally in Grand Rapids. There's 162 patients at Spectrum Health Butterworth Hospital with COVID. 6 more that they're awaiting the results of testing, but they suspect that they have coronavirus.
The weekends, too. That's what I'm noticing. The weekends, these numbers are going up majorly. And it's not because they're counting a couple of days at once.
No.
It's because people are going to church. They're going to weddings. They're going to their friend's house. They're going to lunch. Stay home. Stay home for a month. I mean, if you want to live the rest of your life, if you want your kids to live the rest of their lives, just stay home.
Exactly. I was just telling you before we started the recording, I'm supposed to be at a funeral next weekend, and I'm not going to go.
No, because you don't want it to be your funeral next. That's it.
Exactly. It's not worth it, folks. Mask up. Wear a mask. Stay home if you can.
Yeah. My son's school, they're wearing masks, and they're social distancing the kids that are deciding to go. They're less than 50% of the population in person right now. They had 2 positive cases last week, and I was concerned that was going to turn it into a very big spread. And because they've been following these precautions and being safe and washing their hands and keeping the door handles clean and social distancing the kids, we've had 0 cases transmitted at their school. 0. So it works. Do it.
Yeah, I've been told that the virus is raging in Montcalm County, which is a rural area just north of Grand Rapids, and nobody is mentioning what businesses are being impacted by this. A lot of people know, but they won't say because they're afraid of the conservatives hunting them down and saying, hey,
Yeah,
because we've got the frickin' militias here.
And yeah, I mean, obviously I don't want to go too quick into our next story. But, this ties into what we're doing right now, because the newest terrorists of the week, which seems to be a thing every week now, attempted to go after a podcaster, a left-leaning podcaster.
Yeah, and actually, we might as well, let's get right into it.
I guess I already started
and
us
there. we can circle back to more coronavirus stuff in a minute, but yeah, This is Teresa Baldus writing for the Detroit Free Press. This was published on the Battle Creek Enquirer website. This is dated October 29th. The leader of a national white supremacist group who ran a hate camp in Michigan and one of his cohorts were charged Thursday with multiple crimes as extremist groups continue to land on the FBI's radar nationwide. The latest suspects were arrested at their homes 6 a.m. Thursday morning for their alleged roles in a December 2019 incident in Dexter, Michigan, which is just outside of Ann Arbor. Police said a husband, wife, and their infant child were terrorized by 2 white supremacists who showed up on their porch in the middle of the night and took photos of their house. Why? Because they thought that a podcaster who has called out these neo-Nazis lived in this house. It's unbelievable. So here we go again. This is Alan Berg all over again. If you folks need to dig in your history a little bit. Alan Berg was a radio host in Denver who was gunned down execution style in his driveway by a group of Aryan Nation skinheads. By the way, Alan Berg was Jewish, so they really went after him.
Yeah.
So the police have identified the suspects as 25-year-old Justin Watkins of Bad Axe and 35-year-old Alfred Gorman of Taylor. Police say they are both members of the Base, a white supremacy organization that openly advocates for violence and criminal acts against the U.S. and purports to be training for a race war to establish white rule in areas of the U.S., including either the Pacific Northwest.
Oh my God, help me out here. Is there a spot in the U.S. where there isn't white rule?
Or the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Oh, stop it. Like, that is completely ruled by whites.
Mm-hmm. My mom said,
oh my God.
I told my mom about this. She says, oh, those people up in the UP will run them out. I'm like, Mom, they're sympathizers up there. Are you crazy?
Do they not? Somebody already colonized the UP. You guys are like 200 years late. What the heck?
Oh, my God. Attorney General Dana Nessel has charged the two with multiple felonies, including gang membership. They could face pretty close to 30 years in prison, 20 on the gang charges.
That's what
by
a thug
themselves.
looks like, though. Call them terrorists. Call them thugs. That's what they are.
Mm-hmm. Their arrests come 3 weeks after 14 other anti-government individuals were charged in a sensational befoiled plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. 5 days before the kidnapped suspects were arrested, a Madison Heights man who authorities said hated police and was preparing for a revolt was killed in a shootout with the FBI as they tried to arrest him outside a Texas Roadhouse restaurant on an outstanding warrant.
Wow.
Well, this gets better. We'll talk about a similar tie, another kidnapping plot, this one Ohio, that has not been getting the story on the national news. The suspects arrested Thursday were not part of the kidnap plot, though their neo-Nazi group has come under increased scrutiny over the last year, if arrests are any indication. In January, 3 members of the base were arrested on federal charges in Maryland and Delaware. The following day, 3 more members with ties to the same group were charged in Georgia. We just talked 2 weeks ago on this show about how these white supremacist groups are going to military personnel, retired military personnel. Come join us.
Yep. That's what's happening. And I mean, it's not even just that. I think I've talked on the show before about the property management companies and how, we've got all these private contracts that are being awarded public dollars now. And these people are doing the hiring. They get to select who they're going to give jobs and where they're going to give them. Okay. Mm-hmm. So they're selecting conservative, rural men. They're hiring them to do, the infrastructure contract jobs, the telephone poles, the pipelines, the water stuff. And then they're renting them houses in the strategic neighborhoods where they need their votes. If you own everything, you don't got to redistrict. You don't got to do any of that. All you do is go, okay, we need more red voters here. I'm going to give them a job and a house.
Yep. Javed Ali, the former senior director for counterterrorism at the National Security Council, warns that the base presents a very different and more serious threat than the local militias we've seen thus far. He said the base more closely resembles international terrorist groups in that it has more capability, structure, and members with military or law enforcement backgrounds who are proficient at using weapons and building explosives. By the way, the origin of the group's name, the base, if you translate the name Al-Qaeda into English...
Stop it right now.
It translates into the base. So they're taking their cues from Al-Qaeda.
I'm going to be sick.
Ali, a counterterrorism and cybersecurity professor at the University of Michigan, said, quote, "If that doesn't hearken to something that seems a little more serious and sinister, I don't know what does. This case is very serious and is indicative of the threat not only from this particular group, but the broader one. We're not going to see the last of these." End of quote.
So I have to bring up a historical event right now because I just actually learned about it recently, and I can't stop thinking about it while I watch current events happening. I believe it was called the Greenwood Massacre.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard about it. It was a pretty big deal, but as history goes in white America, we don't talk about how violent we are.
We don't talk about anything. Well, we're going to talk a little bit later about the Tulsa Massacre from 1921 because they found a mass grave. We'll get into the details on
that's
it.
actually what I am. That's what I'm referring to right here. The Tulsa Race Massacre. It was in the Greenwood district.
Yep.
So yeah, that's exactly what it was. Mobs of white residents. I'll read you exactly what it says on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
The Tulsa Race Massacre took place on May 31st and June 1st, 1921, 100 years ago, when mobs of white residents, many of them deputized and given weapons by city officials, sound familiar, guys? It's what I've been telling you is happening, attacked black residents and businesses of the Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There were over 800 injuries, 183 serious injuries, and estimates of 300 people killed. They still haven't found all the bodies.
And they might be more than 300.
Yeah, they still haven't found all the bodies. And they, I'm sure, didn't document the missing because they wanted to erase them. Because
they're black people. Who cares about them? That was the attitude then. It's the attitude among violent conservatives today. Sorry, it is.
It is. And
yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit. We have discussed the Tulsa Race Massacre at great length on this show in the past couple of years. Authorities said that Watkins and Gorman used online chat rooms to encourage members to meet in person and engage in military training to prepare for the insurgency against the government.
So they're turning the government against the government, and they're turning the left against the right, which is a great way for absolute complete havoc, right?
Mm-hmm. Their group also traffics in Nazi ideology and extreme anti-Semitism, at one point requiring its members to read neo-Nazi books that urged the collapse of Western civilization. Watkins claims to have been appointed leader of the base and allegedly ran a hate camp for members of the group where he led tactical and firearms training for participants with the goal of being prepared for the violent overthrow of the government. Oh,
Be
boy.
interested to know where that hate camp was at.
Oh, yeah, I'm hoping that'll get revealed in court documents, hopefully in the next few days. Here's the incident that led up to the arrest on Thursday. This happened back in December 11th, 2019 at about 11:30 p.m. A husband, wife, and their infant child were inside their home in Dexter, Michigan. They saw two men in dark clothing walking nearby, flashing lights at their house and taking pictures while on their front porch. The couple contacted police, who had learned that the men on the couple's porch were neo-Nazis who mistook their home for the home of a podcaster that they were targeting. They were looking for Daniel Harper, the host of I Don't Speak German. The podcast is critical of the neo-Nazi movement and expresses concern about the rise in white supremacy in the United States. So these neo-Nazis took a picture of themselves on the porch of this couple, then uploaded the picture to the base channel on the social media platform Telegram.
Wow.
Basically say, here we are. Do you feel safe now? Here is an intimidation technique.
Oh, that's so scary.
In the photograph, Watkins is wearing a black skull mask, a Totenkopf shirt, camouflage pants, and a tactical plate carrier with rifle magazines that has a patch of the logo for the base visible on the front of the vest. The caption reads, quote, "The base sends greetings to Daniel Harper of the Antifa podcast, I Don't Speak German."
And just for a moment,
Wow.
The podcast, I Don't Speak German, the description for it on wikipedia.org is, I Don't Speak German is a podcast about white nationalism in the United States, self-described as a podcast confronting white nationalism one asshole at a time, by its hosts Daniel Harper and Jack Graham.
Well, that's how you got to do it. Oh, man. Yeah, these guys are just pure evil. To identify one another, members wear 3 white runic Iowa symbols, which is pictured in the photograph at the Dexter home. Watkins was named leader of the national group following a nationwide crackdown in early 2020 that led to the arrest of multiple members of the base. Yeah.
Bad axe.
Mm-hmm.
Bad axe.
Yeah.
Lots of bad axes and bad axe.
Yeah. I've been to Bad Axe before. Oh, boy. Watkins was initially identified as a member of the group in November 2019. He conducted recruiting, produced propaganda material for the group, and ran a hate camp for members in Bad Axe where they did the tactical training. So, yeah, I think we might need to take a road trip.
Right?
The training was documented in recruitment and propaganda videos for the base. Here's what he wrote when he published a manifesto. Wow. Quote, "I will train with firearms, explosives, knives, rider trucks, and anything else I have to destroy this kike system that is genociding my people." End of quote.
I like that he specified rider trucks.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah, that's some creepy stuff going on there.
Mm-hmm. He concluded with this call to violence, quote, "To victory with pure, unadulterated Aryan violence, hail Terragram." End of quote.
Whoa.
Both men have been charged with gang membership, which is a 20-year felony, unlawful posting of a message, which is a 2-year felony and or a $5,000 fine, and using a computer to commit a crime, which is a 4-year felony and or a $5,000 fine. Both of these assholes are at the Washtenaw County Jail. Hopefully they rot there, my opinion. Like Joe Elder used to say on the show, give them a potato and a glass of water. That's all they get for dinner. Let them figure it out.
On a side point, one of their charges was posting an unlawful message.
Unlawful posting of a message.
That's kind of scary, but that's a law. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah. Attorney General Dana Nessel said, quote, using tactics of intimidation to incite fear and violence constitutes criminal behavior. We cannot allow dangerous activities to reach their goal of inflicting violence and harm on the public. End of quote. The Michigan Democratic Jewish Caucus group applauded the charges, noting they come 1 year after members of the base vandalized a synagogue in the Upper Peninsula. So these guys they're what they want.
Yeah, they're blatant bigots.
Yes.
And yeah, we're at a point now in society where people are not ashamed of their bigotry. They're proud of it. They're proudly displaying it.
And
that's a huge shift from where we were even months ago.
And guess who cheers them on? Donald Trump. Comes from the top, folks. This has all been lying underneath the surface for a while. They're just now emboldened enough to start being blatantly racist, blatantly white nationalist.
And let's keep in mind, once he loses the presidency, that doesn't mean he loses his platform.
Oh, no.
He's not going away. He's not going to disappear.
No.
He's going to keep inciting these people. So no matter what, even if he leaves office, don't think everything's going to be fixed.
Yeah, because you know that the media is going to continue to give him a platform.
Oh, yeah. They would lose viewers. Why else would people watch?
Unbelievable. And then we've got this story. This has not really hit the national news, but it has hit our friends at the World Socialist website, WSWS.org. I highly recommend their daily podcast that they put out. We used to air it on the station that I used to work at locally that used to carry this show. This is Eric London writing on October 24th. Local newspapers in Ohio have exposed a plot led by Republican activist Renee Turner to build a posse to kidnap and murder Ohio Governor Mike DeWine. Though DeWine is a Republican and a Trump supporter, he was evidently targeted for implementing mild restrictions to deal with the coronavirus pandemic, which so far as of the writing of this article killed 5,100 Ohioans. So now we have a very blatant breaking of the 11th commandment. This goes beyond the 11th commandment. Thou shalt never speak ill of another Republican.
That's true. That's true.
So this is, we're beyond
Fortunately, it doesn't sound like she actually broke any laws. At least she hasn't been held accountable.
Turner confirmed in a Friday interview with Cleveland.com that she was trying to recruit people to place the governor under house arrest.
Well, I mean, they said that was legal, didn't they? The police? That one crazy guy from Berry County?
Berry County, douchebag of the week from about 3 weeks ago.
She literally took his advice.
Yeah. The plan was revealed when an individual she attempted to recruit filed a police report last week. State police then visited Turner but did not make an arrest.
No, because it's okay to plan to kidnap the governor if you are
a Republican
that is
in
female
charge.
And in charge.
As of this writing, not a single national news publication has reported the Ohio developments. And by the way, they've posted a picture of Renee Turner with Vice President Mike Pence. Though it is not known how far advanced this particular plot was or how many people were involved, it comes just over 2 weeks after federal officials arrested over a dozen fascists who planned to kidnap and kill Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and also discussed targeting Virginia Governor Ralph Northam. Trump has made no secret of his plans to mobilize far-right supporters to invalidate the popular vote and attempt to remain in office. This strategy is focused particularly on battleground states like Ohio and Michigan. You can add Pennsylvania, where Trump threatened to withhold federal funding to the state of Pennsylvania unless they help get him reelected. Yes, he said that.
Isn't that the state, too, that he was like, what the hell is wrong with you people?
Yeah. Turner is a Trump supporter who has connections to a group of Republican state legislators who have been calling for DeWine to be arrested for the damage to business interests caused by statewide lockdown measures. State Representative John Becker, one of this group, told the Dayton Daily News on Friday that he personally met with Turner 2 weeks ago. In a short video responding to the revelations, Becker said Turner was building a posse whose plan was to arrest the governor at his home, put him on trial for tyranny, and with the potential for that being either execution or exile. That is a direct quote.
What am I, like, can you make me up? This can't be real.
This sounds just like Michigan. This is a sitting member of the Ohio State Legislature
who is walking free
this.
while we are the exact same thing people are looking at life sentences for.
Mm-hmm.
Help me understand.
There's no way to understand this. This is nuts. This is insanity.
The level of violence they're calling for. Okay, keep reading. Go ahead.
Yeah. 6 weeks ago, Becker petitioned a prosecutor to file criminal charges against DeWine for terrorism, inducing panic, and other crimes related to the lockdown. In the same YouTube video announcing his awareness of the plot against DeWine, Becker provocatively repeated calls for viewers to submit affidavits in support of his effort to arrest DeWine. Earlier this autumn, Becker cynically declared, quote, "When Governor DeWine is arrested, I sincerely hope that he is wearing a mask and doesn't get tasered," end of quote.
I think that was him calling for the police to shoot him, since we all know that if you don't get tasered, you're probably just going to get shot.
Once again, this is a quote from a sitting Ohio State legislator. In a press conference held Friday to address other matters, DeWine responded to a question about the plot by saying he had not been previously briefed by police or federal officials. He did indicate that he took the plot seriously. Well, why wouldn't he? You just had 14 nut jobs get arrested here in Michigan for wanting to kidnap and murder the governor here.
Unfortunately for them, they can probably use this as evidence of why they shouldn't be charged for it. I mean, if I were on trial, if I were them, that's exactly what I would say. I would stand up and say, I was doing exactly what this guy was doing. Why isn't he in jail?
And here's a picture of Renee Turner holding a sign that says, "Remove Hitler, Mike DeWine now. Remove the tyrannist leadership from our White House now." I'm assuming she's talking about Ohio's governor's mansion. Although the real tyranny is in the White House, or as I like to call it, the septic tank, because there's nothing but shit there. Sorry, that's the way I feel. Yeah. If you don't like it, turn the channel.
And the tyranny is all downtown, too, because we barely are allowed to drive there anymore.
On Thursday, the day before details of the plot emerged, Turner traveled to the state capitol and held a swearing-in ceremony for herself, claiming she was the legitimate governor of Ohio, and presented a notarized oath of office signed by several supporters.
She anointed herself the governor? What? Yep. What?
In a Facebook post about the swearing-in, Turner said, quote, "Governor Mike DeWine has become concentrated, grown, and has become a tyrant and will be held accountable immediately. He will receive a tyrant's punishment."
What?
End of quote.
Okay, so just so y'all know what's happening, they're clearly setting a stage for how Trump is going to handle his loss.
Mm-hmm.
I just, narcissism, exhibit 1.
What do you say about somebody that has declared themselves the governor of Ohio?
Narcissism, exhibit 1.
There you go.
Exhibit A. Maybe.
Insanity, exhibit B.
Yeah.
Turner acknowledged on Friday the state police visited her after reports of the plot surfaced and treated her in a friendly manner, telling Cleveland.com that one policeman, quote, "said he was just there to check out my temperament and what my plans are," end of quote.
Well, they are not here to police white people. I don't know why we keep expecting them to.
Her temperament, she's rabid like a wild dog, my opinion.
So yeah, just bigoted enough to not get arrested.
Another state legislator seeking to oust or arrest DeWine is State Representative Nino Vitale. He claims here's his claims. He says that the coronavirus was created by Bill Gates. Can I hit the cuckoo again? Do I need to hit the cuckoo again? I guess I do. Vitale led efforts earlier this year to force the resignation of Dr. Amy Acton, the director of the Ohio Department of Health and leader of the state's coronavirus response, who stepped down in June due to death threats.
Death threats. Stepped down, left her job because they were going to kill her.
Yeah. The Columbus Dispatch reported that in May, quote, "protesters, some of them armed, showed up at her Bexley home several times. Acton was given a security detail, an unusual step, end of quote. The ABC affiliate in Cleveland at the time wrote this, quote, neighbors reported several men walking up and down the street with assault weapons stating that there will be no violence for now, end of quote.
Wow.
Representative Vitale, again, this is a sitting member of the Ohio State Legislature, referred to Acton, who is Jewish, as a globalist and a medical dictator. Those are direct quotes. 32 Republican state legislatures, including Vitale and Becker, signed a declaration demanding DeWine reopen the state immediately. Last I heard, the state's open.
Yeah.
Like Trump said, Whitmer needs to reopen Michigan. Well, the state's open. It shouldn't be, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier this year, Vitale and other state legislators said DeWine was attempting to set up concentration camps in the state. Whoo! Here we go again.
Is nobody told him about the prisons?
Vitale on Facebook said, quote, if your child tests positive for COVID, they will remove your child from your home. His claims were also picked up by the Breitbart-linked Ohio Star, which published an article titled, Ohio FEMA Camps, Still More Questions Than Answers, on September the 4th.
Wow.
Jesus Christ. Cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. A report in the Ohio Capitol Journal raises questions about Vitale's possible ties to Turner herself, but makes clear that she was at the very least motivated by his incendiary statements. Oh, so he is the one that got her fired up about this. Oh, Jesus. Quote, Turner shared one post by Vitale from May 18th in which he accused DeWine of giving himself total dictatorial power. Vitale also falsely suggested the governor knew about the virus in March 2019, many months before the novel coronavirus was ever discovered. End of quote. That's coming from the Ohio Capitol Journal newspaper.
Wow.
Oh, Jesus. What is... I gotta stop. What is wrong with these people? Oh, by the way, further in the article, they said that Ohio is also a hotbed of militia activity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, remember the comment earlier about rider trucks?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen off of the expressway right near where I've told you they've got all these, well, there's a million airfields popping up, but there's three right off of the expressway between Unica and Fruitport. There's also a truck stop rest area over there. And if you look off of the expressway, you will see hundreds of rider trucks parked there. And I honestly believe that it's out in these rural areas, which is where they keep turning up these hate camps, right? Mm-hmm. That they're training these guys. And I've been talking about this since before they, unwrapped the Whitmer plot. Mm-hmm. I saw their trucks with bullet holes and burn spots. I knew they were training somewhere out there in the woods. Now, hearing these militia members actually refer to the rider trucks that I was already very, concerned about. Yeah. You remember Trump and Biden were on the town hall. I don't know if you saw the part where Trump was discussing his great military logistics director who was going to pass out the vaccine and make sure everybody got it. Mm-hmm. But it scared the hell out of me to hear him say that. And I started looking into the logistics trucks that I've seen go to the hospitals all the time. Mm-hmm. And one of the companies, Apache Logistics, is actually partnered with Ryder, Google, and Android.
Oh, lovely.
So we've got some stuff to be watching for, guys.
Mm-hmm. Continuing the article a little bit further down, as in Michigan, the anti-lockdown rallies earlier this year provided the basis for far-right groups to meet and plan. Many well-funded right-wing groups were involved in planning the anti-lockdown rallies that took place at the Ohio State Capitol in April, including one event that was sponsored by FreedomWorks, subsidiary of a group funded by the billionaire Koch brothers.
So that's your money, friends. All that tax money they didn't have to pay. It's your money that's paying for these groups.
Yeah. The Ohio Liberty Coalition's president is John McAvoy, who the Center for Media Democracy explains is, quote, on the board of the Northwest Ohio Conservative Coalition, end of quote. Yeah. Violent conservatives being violent.
Yep, that's what it's about, though. Ultimately, it's about greed and power.
Yep, and we're going to get back into the COVID stuff, but this kind of ties into it a little bit. Ken Haddad writes this for WDIV television in Detroit. WDIV and the Detroit News had a poll commissioned. They asked 600 registered voters in Michigan questions about the approval rating of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Donald Trump, and their responses to the coronavirus pandemic. So here are the findings of this poll from, again, WDIV television and the Detroit News. It was conducted October 23rd through 25th. Whitmer is seen favorably by 54% of Michigan voters, unfavorably by 37.3%. They're a minor improvement from October. As far as the job that Whitmer is doing, 59.1% of Michigan voters approve, 43.4% of them strongly approve. Only 28.9% strongly disapprove. When it comes to handling the pandemic, 60.9% of Michigan voters approve of the job Governor Whitmer is doing, 47.5% strongly approve. Pandemic approval in Metro Detroit increases to 70.7%. Outside of Metro Detroit, 51.6%. Whitmer's strongest support comes from urban and suburban voters, her lowest among small town and rural voters. Which, by the way, that's where you're now seeing the coronavirus raging out of control, is the small town and the rural areas.
Yep.
Among voters over the age of 65, Whitmer's pandemic approval is at 75.2%, which is surprising because a lot of them are, they're Trump voters. By a margin, 38.6% approve of Donald Trump's pandemic response, 54.5% disapprove, 50.7% strongly disapprove. That's over half of the state of Michigan. Donald Trump's favorable and unfavorable rating is 40.4% favorable to 53% unfavorable. According to WDIV, these numbers have remained consistent for essentially 3.5 years in Michigan. Voters disapprove of Trump's job performance, 43.7% approve, 52.1% disapprove. Those numbers, again, according to WDIV, have been statistically consistent for the past 3 years. So we'll see if the
election results actually coordinate to what they're telling us.
Exactly.
It should be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
If we ever get election results, because I'm starting to doubt that'll happen after reading all these warnings.
Well, they keep saying it'll be a few days late. I'm hoping that they can get it. But since we're talking about elections and the coronavirus and everything else, we might as well talk about campaign financing.
Yeah, that does seem to be tied to every problem we have.
Yeah. Our friend Jeff Smith at GRID, Grand Rapids Institute for Information Democracy, wrote an article on October 26th, and it has to do with a story. I'm actually going to do the story that he references first. MLive published an article. Brian McVicker wrote this for MLive on October 25th. There's been an allegation that Hank Meijer, I believe he's the CEO of Meijer. He's one of the bigwigs. His family owns the Meijer grocery store chain that's all through Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Wisconsin.
Yeah, most of the Midwest now, I believe.
Yes. Well, Hank Meijer, his son Peter Meijer is running for 3rd District Congress, which is Justin Amash's old seat. By the way, Peter Meyer's running as a Republican. There's been an allegation that Hank Meijer created a super PAC and donated money and didn't attach his name to it. So let me read the story here. A campaign finance watchdog group has filed a complaint against a Grand Rapids-based company that it says was created to hide the identity of individuals who funded a $150,000 donation to a Republican super PAC opposing Democratic candidate Hillary Scholten. The Campaign Legal Center filed a complaint Friday with the Federal Election Commission. That is according to attorney Brendan Fisher. The complaint targets Montcalm LLC, which was incorporated on September 28th and less than 2 weeks later provided the Congressional Leadership Fund with $150,000. The Congressional Leadership Fund is focused on helping Republicans win a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. Federal Election Commission records detailing the donation list Malcolm LLC's address as 80 Ottawa Avenue Northwest Suite 101. That is the same address as the Meijer Foundation, Greenville Partners LLC. Republican Peter Meijer, whose family founded the Meijer Supercenter chain, is running against Skolton in 3rd Congressional. We've mentioned that. Fisher, the attorney, said, quote, the group does not have a website, does not have a Facebook page. There is no record of the entity existing in business records. It's not registered with the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce, for example, which suggests it had no independent sources of revenue and was not legitimately generating income that it could have used to finance the Super PAC contribution, end of quote. Mark Rizek, a Grand Rapids-based attorney at Miller Johnson, is listed as the resident agent of Malcolm LLC. The address listed in the business filings is 45 Ottawa Avenue Southwest, which is the address of Miller Johnson Law Firm. Rizek declined to comment for the story. They could not reach anybody at the Meijer Foundation. Nobody answered the door when a reporter knocked on the door at 80 Ottawa Avenue Northwest. So, there you go. Meijer campaign spokesperson Noah Sadlier said that the FEC complaint has, quote, nothing to do with Peter Meijer, end of quote. He said that Skolton, quote, and her D.C. friends have moved on from smearing Peter Meijer to attempting to smear his family and others in the community, end of quote. Well, this kind of spawned the article that Jeff Smith wrote where he talks about Hank Meijer. He also goes in and starts talking about the DeVos family contributions in further articles. You said that the DeVos family donated how much?
I believe Jeff added it up, and it was over $1 million to all of the conservative.
It was more than that, wasn't it? Like in the 5 million range?
Oh, really? Maybe, I was thinking it was 1.5, but let's check it out just to make sure.
Yeah, let's double check it here. Yeah, by the way, he has a new series, DeVos Money in the 2020 Elections, Part 4, Buying Federal Candidates. Here's how he lists the series. Part 1, he looks at how two of the companies the DeVos family owns, Amway and RDV Corporation, have provided significant funding to candidates in the 2020 election. In Part 2, he looked at the candidates in Kent County who have received funding from the DeVos's. Part 3 was looking at how the DeVos family members were influencing electoral outcomes through their campaign contributions at the state level. Part 4 is now the federal level.
Okay, and I got the numbers here. It looks like I was just citing the numbers for Maria DeVos. She donated $1.162 million. Dick DeVos Jr. donated $620,600. Daniel DeVos was $1.625 million. Suzanne Sherry DeVos was $1.27 million. Pam DeVos is $27,000. Doug DeVos is $735,000.
What's does he have a total?
Grand total is $5,440,705 for this election cycle. But
we did the math on this before we started recording.
Yeah.
$5.4 million in campaign donations based solely against Dick DeVos's net worth is $5.4 billion with a B dollars. That's not counting Betsy. That's not counting Doug. That's not counting Dan. That's
or
not counting
any of their children who are now grown in their 30s and 40s.
Because guess what? You can't find that information on the internet. So we tried.
They own the internet, so.
Yeah. They might as well. So we did the math on it. 5.4 million of 5.4 billion is 1/10 of 1%.
Which I just got to say, since we're using that figure, is very similar to the wealth and disparity we have right now, since I believe it's like 1/10 of 1% of the population has over half of the world's wealth.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, to continue, this 5.4 million out of 5.4 billion was how much?
1/10 of 1%.
Okay, so that's of their entire salary. The donations they gave for the cycle was only 1/10 of 1%, which Darren ended up
of just Dick DeVos's net income.
Just his. Oh, wow.
His own net worth, because we don't know the net worth of the other children.
Right. So then he did the math on how that would be compared to the family living at
the poverty level.
Okay.
Poverty level in the U.S. is $26,200 for a family of 4. That's man, wife, 2 kids, or however you want to structure the family. 0.1% of $26,200 is $26.20. That's a family of 4 filling up their car one time at the gas station.
So just imagine for 1 second, okay? Because you have to think about the payback they're going to get for the $25, $26 that they threw at their candidates, okay? Think about the number of businesses that these people own, okay? And think about the number of private contracts that are being funded with public dollars right now. Okay, so they're throwing in, their $25, and they're going to make hundreds of thousands. If you're looking at our numbers of what a family at poverty level would be looking at, it would be hundreds of thousands of dollars in profits just for tossing certain people altogether $25. Okay, so instead of getting hundreds of thousands, they're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. Easily, and they know it. It's guaranteed. And not only are they going to make hundreds of millions of dollars to increase their power, but they're going to have all that extra power. They're going to have all those seats in the legislature. They're going to have all those judges on the courts. We are powerless if we let this happen. Like another cycle of this. We are powerless. And keep in mind, you can't be one of the richest people on earth and still have a soul. If you have been surrounded by this much suffering and you still have more wealth than half of the population or quarter of the population, it's because there's something wrong with you. These are not the people we want in control.
No, not at all. Like Carlin says, it's a big club and you ain't in it.
You have to lack a conscience to get there, I guess is my point. You have to lack a conscience to get that kind of money.
Or once you get that kind of money, your conscience starts leaving you because you're more concerned about accumulating
power,
more wealth.
And greed. It comes down to the power, and it's scary, friends.
It's cyclical. it's a catch-22. Money breeds power, and power breeds money.
Yep.
It does.
When they say it's the root of all evil, they are not wrong.
Yeah, the love of money is the root of all evil. This is, and I'm not into the Bible, and we've talked about that before we recorded today. The world's going to hell. Well, but we're already there.
That was the other thing that we ended up looking into when we were discussing this earlier, was one of the people Jeff Smith named in his article was someone named Norma Van Kuyken, who's a new donor, giving lots of money to the Republicans. And we were trying to understand why, and we ended up connecting her and her husband to a bunch of the manufacturing companies, as well as at-risk youth. Supposedly they have a company that helps at-risk youth, and they are involved with places like Wedgwood. So my guess is that she is funding those Republicans in hopes that they will continue ramping up the juvenile detention system and the refugees that are being passed around the country, taken from the border from their parents.
Yeah. And by the way, that $5,440,000, that's just for the federal campaigns. That's not including
the local campaigns, which is where these people have their actual friends and family running.
So it's even more money. Oh. And you know what? I'm sure he's got totals for that too.
And they target local, not federal, so this is really scary.
In the state elections, the donations total $1.2 million. Oh, it gets better. In Kent County alone, let's see what the total is there.
That's really bad.
$50,000.
That goes so far in the county. I ran for county commissioner 2 years ago, and county commissioner candidates don't raise money like that.
Yes,
they just don't.
And we had you on the show when you were running.
Yeah, and it was a very important learning experience because
yeah,
that was when I got to see how things worked. So
yeah. Oh man, we had mentioned the Tulsa Massacre, and I really want to get to this because we've talked about it for years on this show. A lot of people don't know this ever happened.
Yeah, I really didn't. I'm ashamed for how much I don't know, though.
This is written, you shouldn't be, because there's an old saying that history is written by the victors.
Oh, that is I've learned that firsthand. The
Yeah.
Baxter neighborhood over here. I don't know if you guys know, but Albert Baxter was the historian.
This is a story written by Elias Marat, writing for the mindunleashed.com. This is dated October 22nd. A mass grave has been unearthed in an Oklahoma cemetery as archaeologists continue to search for victims of one of the most terrible examples of racist mass terror in modern U.S. history, the 1921 Tulsa Massacre. And by the way, the Greenwood district that you mentioned, it used to be prosperous. It was called Black Wall Street.
Yeah, this was a really high-class black neighborhood.
And that's why the white people went right through and killed people and torched businesses and destroyed everything.
They could not allow a black community to be respected. They couldn't allow it because it threatened their power.
On Wednesday, Oklahoma State archaeologist Carrie Stackleback announced that her team had found the outlines of 10 coffins at Oak Lawn Cemetery in Tulsa, and that she has, quote, a high degree of confidence that this is one of the locations that we have been looking for, end of quote. However, investigators remain cautious about the finding because they haven't yet exposed the likely human remains. City officials began efforts to uncover the remains of victims of the 1921 massacre in 2018. An excavation of another area of the cemetery in July did not yield any results. Since continuing the excavation on Monday, state archaeologists have already found one set of human remains and a suspected second set, which are both not yet confirmed to belong to the victims of the massacre. And again, the death toll is officially 300, but it's probably more. Because, again, the victors write history. Oh, man. So, this is a very, very lengthy article. We do have it published on our Facebook page. So
just reading that description that I had read earlier from Wikipedia, it sent chills down my spine. Because I didn't realize there was a time when they had just deputized all of the citizens and sent them out after black people. After, basically, if it's anything like right now, they're inciting this violence. They're inciting racism, the same people that have these weapons to pass out and have the power to deputize people. So we are not any better off than we were in 1920, and we might be much worse off because they've got more power and more resources than they had before.
Yeah. Let me go further into the article here. It says the area was plunged into blood and fire on May 21st of 1921 after a young black man named Dick Rowland was dragged to the Tulsa County Courthouse by a lynch mob after he was accused of insulting a white woman. A group of black men arrived at the courthouse to defend Rowland from the crowd, and after a brief exchange of fire, police organized posses of deputized white men and gave them permission to rampage through Greenwood and loot, murder, and pillage the area. As the orgy of violence reached its crescendo, private planes even dropped firebombs onto the black businesses and residential buildings of Greenwood while gunmen strafed black residents fleeing the massacre.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that detail before.
When all was said and done, as many as 300 people were killed and Black Wall Street was decimated. An account from black attorney B.C. Franklin recalled the area was reduced to, quote, ashes and burned safes and trunks and the like where once stood beautiful homes and businesses, end of quote.
They firebombed them with private planes?
Yes. And just to add insult to injury, victims' families were also rounded up under martial law while bodies were buried in mass graves by strangers. Many families were never given notice of whether their loved ones died or even where they were buried.
Oh.
Some families still don't know where their aunts, uncles, and grandparents disappeared to during that period. The Tulsa Massacre has often been referred to as a race riot, but historians contend that the term hardly describes the scale of violence and complicity of local authorities, who even went so far as to block Red Cross medical personnel from entering Tulsa while forcing firemen to turn around at gunpoint when they entered the area. Smithsonian Museum programmer John W. Franklin, in a Smithsonian Magazine article, wrote this, quote, the term riot is contentious because it assumes that black people started the violence as they were accused of doing by whites. We increasingly use the term massacre, or I use the European term pogrom, end of quote. Yeah, this was not a race riot. This was a genocide, period. That's probably the best word for it.
it was, I mean, the word I'm thinking of is in German, and I can't say it. See if my Wikipedia can say it for me, but it doesn't.
I might be able to...
It's the Night of Broken Glass, translated into English.
Kristallnacht.
Yeah, that's it. And it was the night that the SS officers went through Germany and just destroyed all the Jewish businesses and homes. They smashed out their windows and destroyed everything they could, set everything on fire, and just ruined the quality of life for everybody and killed and beat them and whatever else they felt like doing that night.
Oh, lovely. We are starting to get a little low on time. We've got plenty of articles to send you to on our Facebook page. So if you get time, you need to read some of these. Up in Kalkaska County, Michigan, the Kalkaska County Board of Commissioners organized a special meeting because they wanted to approve a resolution supporting the impeachment of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. The meeting was called off after pretty much everybody in the crowd who spoke said, "This is bullshit. Don't do this."
In which case they all got together and went, "Let's just make a plan to kidnap her."
Oh, God. Oh, maybe they did.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I mean, it does seem to be a theme happening around the country lately. So.
Yeah, well, Kalkaska County is a bunch of rednecks up there, in my opinion. Sorry, I've been there. I've got people that I care about that live up there. There's a great story by the New York Daily News. Chris Sommerfeld wrote, the headline reads, "Hackers breach Trump campaign website and threaten to release evidence of crimes." They got into the about section of the website and quote unquote vandalized it. And there's a screenshot of it. It's beautiful.
I haven't seen this.
It looks like somebody mimicked the page that was put up when the FBI seized Backpage a few years ago. Well, it does.
I think it does look familiar. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, my God. Let me see. Other stories to talk about there. The Associated Press has an article where hackers stole $2.3 million from the Wisconsin Republican Party. Apparently, they hacked into the system and modified some invoices from vendors and then had the money sent to them. The only reason that the hack was discovered was an invoice was sent that shouldn't have been sent. That was when things went. It was like, oh, hello. Wow. Could have had a V8, right? Oh, my gosh. And definitely two stories to read here, folks. There's a story from thehill.com. Trump strips protections for the Tongass Forest, opening it up to logging. That's up in Alaska. By the way, we haven't talked about this. We'll try and find an article. Trump has also removed protections from the gray wolf population. So get ready to start hunting gray wolves again, even though they're endangered.
It's about helping the farmers, right? Because they were killing the cattle or something.
Something like that. Yeah, we've talked about it on the show before, a long time ago.
Yeah, because they had the ballot proposal and all that weird stuff. And nobody understood what it meant, but...
Yeah. There's one final story that we didn't have time to get that you can see on our Facebook page, and it has to do with Glenn Greenwald, who helped found The Intercept, announced that he is resigning from the organization. He says that editors in New York are censoring him. So make sure you see that article as well. Oh, boy.
Well, good luck this week. Stay safe. Stay masked up, Darren.
Yes, and if you haven't voted yet, get out and vote. Next week, we'll be back. I'm Darren Gibson.
And I'm Katy Steele Baroni for Jack Prince.
For Kristen Cook, please support independent media and the First Amendment.
Stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.